We spent 3 days in Osaka, and in this video, we'll be showcasing over 20 things we did, ate, and experienced to help you plan your next adventure. To kick off day one, we woke up with an appetite that can only be satisfied by a dish we've been craving since we arrived.
We're starving, so we want pancakes. The fluffy pancakes, not no ordinary pancakes.
We made our way over to Osaka Namba Station for our first ever Japan train experience. Inside, we came across our first of many vending machines. The prices of these drinks typically varied from 60 cents all the way up to $1.25.
And how was your first summer experience?
In Japan, train rides are incredibly quiet. A survey found 33.2% of passengers said noisy conversation is the most annoying behavior, highlighting how strictly people follow etiquette to keep trains peaceful. Soon we arrived for our first meal of the day. Graham's is home to Japan's original premium souffle pancakes. They're made in limited batches each day using a meringue-rich batter that's cooked slowly in paper molds under a dome lid. The result is a tall, jiggly, melt-in-your-mouth stack. Now, although Graham has now expanded internationally, trying these pancakes in Japan is truly an authentic experience that captures the heart of the cafe's original concept. After breakfast, we headed to Osaka Castle, one of Japan's most iconic landmarks. Originally built in 1583 by Toyotomi Hideyoshi as a symbol of his power, the castle was destroyed several times over the centuries by Tokugawa forces, lightning, and even bombings during World War II, before the current main tower was reconstructed in 1931. While the tower houses a museum and an observation deck with 360-degree city views, we chose to explore the surrounding Osaka Castle Park instead. The park is huge and perfect for a stroll, with highlights including the historic Hokoku Shrine, offering a peaceful and scenic break right in the heart of the city. Once we were done soaking in the historical vibes at Osaka Castle, we hopped on the Tanamachi line and made our way over to the second stop of the day. Nipponbashi Denden town is known as Osaka's version of Akihabara. What's interesting is this area actually started out as Osaka's electronics district after World War II. Over time, it evolved into a paradise for anime, manga, and gaming fans. Walking through the streets, it felt like stepping into a live-action anime. Neon signs everywhere, arcade music spilling from shops, and shelves packed with everything from retro game consoles to quirky figurines. There are also plenty of claw machines with all kinds of prizes to try and grab, and trading card shops where collectors can spend hours hunting for rare finds. After exploring all the colorful chaos of Denden town, we made our way down the street to Shin. This area has a totally different vibe. The retro signs give it this nostalgic 1960s feel. Shin actually means New World, and was originally built as a tourist attraction to showcase Japan's industrial revolution and modernity. The district was actually designed to resemble Paris in the north and New York in the south, with Tsutenkaku Tower standing tall at its center. It all came together after the success of the 1903 National Industrial Exposition, which drew in over 5 million visitors. Now it's one of Osaka's most unique spots, full of history, color, and that old-school charm the city's famous for. By now we were getting hungry, so we decided it was the perfect time to grab some food, and picked a restaurant that caught our eye.
I think that's the rice.
Oh, the rice is inside.
Oh. So what'd you say about the Coke?
The Coke tastes the same, but there's something different about it.
It doesn't taste the same. And I got this great drink. And a beer. So I have no idea what I grabbed. It looks like a mix of everything. I have no idea what this is. I thought this was the shrimp tempura, but it doesn't taste like shrimp. It's delicious though.
Right next to Shin is Tennoji Park, one of Osaka's most peaceful spots. After all the lights and energy of the New World, this was the perfect place to slow down and catch our breath. The park's actually one of the oldest in the city, dating back to the early 1900s, and it's home to beautiful walking paths, gardens, and even a small zoo. You can see locals relaxing, kids running around, and couples enjoying the open space. It really shows a softer, calmer side of Osaka. We took a quiet stroll through the park and just soaked it all in before heading off to our next stop. Next on our itinerary was Abeno Harukas. Standing 300 meters tall, it's Japan's tallest building. The name Harukas is an old Japanese expression meaning to brighten or to clear up, symbolizing the building's role in enhancing the city's skyline and providing stunning views of Osaka. The building itself is packed with shops, restaurants, an art museum, and even a hotel, but the real highlight is the Harukas 300 observation deck. The observation experience spans 3 main floors. The 58th floor is indoors, perfect for enjoying panoramic views of Osaka no matter the weather. The 59th floor is partially open, giving you fresh air and unobstructed spots for photos. The 60th floor is the rooftop observatory, fully open to the sky, letting you take in a full 360-degree view with the city sprawling endlessly beneath you. Each floor offers a slightly different perspective, so we made sure to explore them all and soak in the incredible sights from every angle. As the sun started to set, we waited for nightfall and headed to our final stop of the day. Dotonbori has been the heart of Osaka's entertainment district since the early 1600s, originally built along the Dotonbori Canal to support shipping and trade. Over time, it transformed into a bustling hotspot full of theaters, restaurants, and nightlife, and today it's famous for its neon lights, giant billboards, and lively streets. One of the most iconic landmarks here is the Glico sign. It's been lighting up the canal since 1935, making it not only a symbol of Osaka, but also one of the city's oldest and most beloved neon signs.
Okay, what do you think so far?
It's definitely like kind of like New York with all the lights and all the signs.
Yeah, it's definitely really packed.
It is very crowded.
There's just people everywhere. It's a very cool experience so far.
Love it.
At this point, we were getting hungry, so we decided to find a place to eat.
We're pretty much trying to find a ramen place. And I'm looking at my phone, and literally everywhere is a ramen place.
We love ramen.
We do love ramen.
Osaka is known as the nation's kitchen, so it felt right to hunt down a small hole-in-the-wall spot tucked away in one of Dotonbori's side streets.
That is. I don't know what that is. It's not good.
I'm just gonna take a sip. Yeah, you could do that. I can't.
It's pretty good. That sake was good.
Then have it. Not like you're driving. We're walking. Oof.
Very good.
Now I want to try it.
You know what? I'm here.
Whatever that is, it's good.
I don't know what this is, but I got the udon with the shrimp tempura.
I got the Japanese style fried chicken, fried rice.
Kind of sucks I don't speak Japanese, but every time they talk very fast, and I have no idea what they're saying. I just kind of smile and go.
Once we were fueled up, we headed back toward the canal and hopped on a boat to experience Dotonbori at its best. Gliding under the glowing lights and bridges, surrounded by the energy of the city, was the best way to wrap up our first day in Osaka. After an unforgettable first day in Osaka, we woke up ready for something a little more peaceful. To start day 2, we hopped on a train at Namba Station and headed about an hour north for our first stop of the day. Katsuoji Temple has a history that stretches back over 1,300 years. It was originally founded in the 8th century and was once called Mirokuji, but later renamed to Katsuoji, which means Temple of the Victorious King. The name comes from a story that an emperor once prayed here and his illness was cured, so the temple became known as a place of good luck and victory. The temple is most famous for its thousands of Daruma dolls, those round red dolls with big eyes that symbolize perseverance and success. The Daruma design is inspired by Bodhidharma, the monk who founded Zen Buddhism, and its shape represents resilience. No matter how many times it's knocked over, it always stands back up. What's really interesting is every Daruma doll you see here, even the tiny ones, were left by visitors. People come to Katsuoji to pray for victory or success. Once you reach the top of the temple, you're able to buy your own Daruma doll. Write your wish or goal on the back, bathe the Daruma in the incense smoke to purify it and bless your intention, paint in one eye to show your determination to achieve the goal, and take it home as a reminder to keep working toward it. For mine, I wish to travel the world more, because we only have one life and I want to make the most of it by experiencing new cultures, places, and moments that remind me how big and beautiful the world really is. Once your goal comes true, you return to the temple, paint in the other eye, and offer the daruma back in thanks. Over the years, this ritual has turned the temple grounds into a sea of red dolls scattered across the steps, shelves, and corners. It's seriously one of the most unique sights in Osaka. As we explored further, we found small but fascinating details, from thousands of colorful daruma dolls lined up across the temple, each left behind by visitors who achieved their goals, to hidden pathways and peaceful ponds that give the whole area a magical storybook-like feel. One of the coolest parts was the photo opportunity area called the World Daruma Challenge. You can hold up your country's flag and take a photo with Katsuoji's main temple and mountains in the background. A really fun and symbolic way to mark your visit. Before leaving, we also tried the daruma stamping activity, which you may have noticed throughout this segment, where you receive a small picture and go around the temple stamping different sections. Each stamp slowly completes an image of the daruma dolls, and by the end, you've created your own little keepsake that captures your journey through the temple. Although the temple is a bit far, I highly recommend adding this to your itinerary. After exploring Katsuoji Temple, we caught a ride down to Minoh Falls, one of Osaka's most famous natural spots. It's located inside Minoh Park, a beautiful forested area that feels completely removed from the city. We were dropped off at a nearby parking lot and had to hike the rest of the way there. The hike took about 15 minutes and wasn't too bad, surrounded by lush greenery with a gentle decline most of the way, so make sure to wear comfortable shoes. This waterfall is part of a much larger hiking area, but since we'd be walking over 25,000 steps a day for the next 2 weeks, we decided to just relax by the falls and enjoy the food instead. Once you reach the bottom, you'll find food vendors selling all sorts of local bites. We got some grilled squid and some hanami dango, the pink, white, and green sweet rice dumplings on a stick. They were chewy, lightly sweet, and the perfect little fuel for our walk through the park. Other food options include fish on a stick and golden ice cream. Minoh Falls itself stands about 33 meters tall. The waterfall is especially stunning in autumn when the leaves turn bright shades of red and orange. It's said to be one of the oldest recorded waterfalls in Japan, and has long been a spot for reflection and relaxation.
Oh wow. That's delicious. Try this.
What does it taste like?
Like candy.
The sound of the water, the fresh air, and the peaceful scenery made it the perfect way to slow down and soak in nature before heading back toward the city.
The waterfall is cool, but the walk back up is not as cool.
After enjoying the peaceful hike to Minoh Falls, our next stop was the Expo 70 Commemorative Park, built on the site of the 1970 Japan World Exposition, the largest exposition of the 20th century. The park covers about 815 acres, nearly the size of New York City's Central Park. The park is divided into several main areas. The Japanese garden showcases traditional landscaping with ponds and seasonal flowers reflecting different eras of garden design. The natural and cultural gardens are filled with forest trails, flower hills, and open lawns, perfect for strolling and soaking in nature. And of course, the Expo Memorial Zone houses iconic landmarks like the Tower of the Sun, a 70-meter tall sculpture by Taro Akamoto symbolizing the past, present, and future of humanity. We only had about an hour and a half before the park closed, which wasn't nearly enough to see even half of it. Even so, wandering the trails, exploring the gardens, and standing beneath the Tower of the Sun gave us an incredible glimpse into the history, creativity, and scale of the Expo. It's easy to see why this park is considered one of Osaka's must-visit spots.
We didn't realize they closed at 5, and now they're playing some Squid Game type music to get us out. And it's very eerie.
After basking in the glory of the Tower of the Sun, we hopped on the Kita-Osaka Kyuko Railway and made our way south back toward the city. Next, we headed to Yodobashi Umeda, the massive electronics and shopping complex right across from JR Osaka Station. Since its 2001 opening, it's grown into one of Japan's largest retail spaces with more than 30,000 square meters of shopping area and annual sales of over 100 billion yen. What's cool is it's not just gadgets. Floors of fashion and food make it a one-stop experience for tech lovers and casual shoppers alike. The massive shopping complex features 13 floors, 9 of which are dedicated to shopping, dining, and entertainment. entertainment, while the upper floors house a hotel and additional facilities. The lower floors are where you'll find Yodobashi Camera, 6 full levels packed with electronics, cameras, home appliances, and gaming gear. The basement level features restaurants and cafes, perfect for a quick meal or coffee break. As you head up to the 7th and 8th floors, the focus shifts to lifestyle shops, hobby stores, and even more dining options. Whether you're here to shop, eat, or just explore, there's something on nearly every level. Just outside Yodobashi Umeda, we came across Grand Front Osaka, this massive open plaza that feels more like a city within a city, surrounded by glass buildings, greenery, and walkways that stretch in every direction. It's the kind of place where people hang out, grab coffee, or just enjoy the atmosphere.
So what are we looking for?
So we were on the hunt for some Labubus, but we couldn't find them. They're sold out. So we're gonna get some Teletubby ones.
For our final stop of the day, we decided to take in one final breathtaking view of the city from above, heading to Kuchen Teien Observatory at the Umeda Sky Building, one of Osaka's most striking landmarks. The observatory sits over 170 meters above the city in a twin tower structure completed in 1993. Inside, you ride up through glass elevators and see-through escalators to reach the top floor where you get amazing panoramic views of Osaka. But if you want to take it one step further, there's another escalator which brings you to the very top, a completely open-air platform where the city stretches out in every direction. From up here, you'll spot the Yodo River, Osaka Bay, even Mount Roko on a clear day. At night, the Lumi Skywalk lights up beneath your feet and the city's lights stretch out forever. With panoramic views and architectural drama, it's an experience you won't forget. A great last thing to see on our Day 2 itinerary. After all the exploring and walking we did, we were getting hungry, so we headed back to Dotonbori to grab dinner and enjoy the evening atmosphere.
Tastes like any other food.
Also, we have plastic straws here.
Wow.
Now we got the spread. So what I got, Wagyu beef, egg, had some chicken skewer, and some ramen. I feel like they gave me a lot of rice for not a lot of... I don't know what this is, but...
You're looking like Naruto.
Day 3 in Osaka was all about Super Nintendo World, and we were so excited to finally experience it in person.
So we made it to Universal. The park opens up at 9, but sometimes they let people in an hour or 30 minutes earlier, so people usually get here super early. Right now it's about 7 a.m. and we're late. As soon as we got off the train, some people started running. We're here to see Super Nintendo World, so hopefully we get through and everything goes well. And if we have time today, probably see some other things.
We decided to visit Super Nintendo World in Osaka for a few reasons. It's the park that started it all, so we had to check it out while we were in Japan. At the time of our trip, there were only 2 Super Nintendo Worlds in the world, Osaka and Hollywood. And Osaka was not only significantly cheaper, but also much closer for us. Honestly, it was just something we really wanted to do. We could have done a day trip to Nara or Kobe instead, but we decided to save those for a return visit to Japan. Even thinking back, we don't regret our choice. We had an absolute blast being there, experiencing everything the park has to offer. From the moment we stepped out of the green tubes and saw everything, it was so nostalgic. Witnessing every detail that was incorporated into bringing this video game concept to life was just incredible. Some of the rides we went on were Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge and Minecart Madness. And after that, we stopped by Camilio's Cafe. I got the Mario Burger and the question mark block tiramisu, and Emily got the teriyaki chicken with star-shaped rice and a power-up cupcake. And for the drink, we both got a star lemonade. And honestly, everything was delicious, super creative, and surprisingly affordable compared to other theme parks we've been to. Once we finished eating, we picked up the power bands, which let us interact with different elements throughout the park, like hitting coin blocks and collecting points just like in the game. We synced our bands with the Universal Studios Japan app, which kept track of our progress, points, and achievements as we explored. We also used the bands to play interactive minigames around the park to collect digital keys. And once we collected 3, we unlocked access to Bowser Jr.'s castle, where we got to take on the final boss minigame for a chance to win the Golden Mushroom. We spent an entire day exploring the park because there were so many things to see, play, and experience. From the rides and minigames with power-up bands, to meeting iconic Mario characters and enjoying the themed cafe. It turned out to be an unforgettable way to cap off our trip. So there you have it. That's over 20 things we saw in Osaka. Let me know in the comments if we missed anything or anything stood out to you. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing so you don't miss another trip. Until next time, remember, you have one life, so make sure you see the world one gem at a time.